Should this really be Little Havana? What's up, everybody? This is Jose from Southern Life. On today's video, we are in historic Little Havana in Miami. This neighborhood is very important to the Cuban community as it represents pretty much the second home of most Cubans historically. Now, I'm very disappointed at what I'm seeing happening here in Little Havana. See, despite the fact that Little Havana is historically the Cuban American neighborhood, it's changed a lot over the years. And unfortunately, some of those changes really are difficult to swallow. Now, Cubans are no longer the largest group that lives here. See, there was a time when Cubans were the majority in this neighborhood, and today, that's no longer the case. A lot of people from Central America live in this neighborhood today, and well, the complexion of the neighborhood has changed, but it still is called Little Havana, and it still has some of the most important and iconic businesses that represent the Cubans that immigrated to the United States here. So despite the fact that the neighborhood's composition has changed greatly, the neighborhood still represents the heart of the Cuban community in Miami. Now, I'm not gonna tell you that this neighborhood has always been a great place, because it's always been a neighborhood of crime and poverty. So, it's always been a poor and somewhat crime-ridden neighborhood. Not disputing that, but that's not really the issue at hand today. Is that the neighborhood has now been overrun by homeless people and on a large scale. The neighborhood has basically become an open homeless field. Many tourists come to Miami to see this neighborhood because it represents the real heart of Miami. And I'm not saying it because I'm Cuban. There's a Little Haiti, there's all these neighborhoods, Wynwood, South Beach, but nothing says Miami more than this particular neighborhood. This neighborhood is the essence of Miami. So when people come to this neighborhood to see the real Miami, to see the most historic and most known neighborhood of Miami, and they see all this homelessness, it really paints a negative picture. Now, the interesting thing is that it's an issue that's been growing in the entire metropolitan area, okay? Homelessness in Miami has just exploded. I mean, it has gotten to the point where Miami is becoming like a Portland, Oregon. And again, the neighborhood has always been a rough area. I'm not disputing that one. I would just say, for the sake of what this neighborhood represents in Miami, shouldn't it be in better condition? Famous Calle Ocho, or in English, 8th Street of Miami, an icon of the city that represents the Cuban community, but it's become the gathering place for much of the city's vagrant population. And it seems like everywhere you look are homeless people. I think it's a little disrespectful that this problem is so persistent here in this neighborhood. I feel like this neighborhood really should be a beacon of just respect for these communities and not really just become an open homeless camp practically. The area attracts tourists from all over the world. I mean, when you think about Miami, you practically are thinking this neighborhood. This neighborhood is pretty much possibly like the last slice of rural Miami. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is that it hurts me to see that there is just a vast number of homeless people residing in this neighborhood, because this really doesn't represent the Cuban community well. And I feel like the city of Miami should do a better job of showing this neighborhood respect. I know they wouldn't tolerate this in the rich people areas. You have, of course, the stars, like this one for Julio Iglesias. See, throughout most of the United States, homelessness mostly affects the white community, and the Hispanic communities are disproportionately less likely to end up homeless. But in Miami, something different happens because Hispanics are the majority here, and with that, Hispanics, a number of the largest, so it makes sense that there would have to be homeless people of Hispanic origin. So the question now would be to find the homeless people that live out here and really talk to them and understand if they're here by choice, if law enforcement is not proactive by going after them here. Why this neighborhood? I mean, some things are clear. Safety, volume of tourists, all that could mean this is the type of neighborhood where people could easily fade in. So it may be that the homeless population chooses to be here. But should that really be the face of Little Havana? So there's been the recent change now in Miami that homelessness has just exploded in Miami's Hispanic communities. It's more prevalent now than it's ever been. Cost of living has become unbearable. Now, this place here is La Casa de las Guayaberas. Are they open? I hope they have. I've been trying to get a nice guayabera. Now, guayabera is a traditional Cuban dress shirt. Very typical of Cubans. This is La Casa de la Guayabera. I've been looking for one, but it has to be in the right size. And let's see if they have it. I'm still looking for my guayabera. They have them here, but the prices are just touristy. Can't do it. But these are guayaberas, traditional Cuban dress. Unfortunately, the prices are just ridiculous. $135 for a guayabera, I think it's much. But there it is again. You know, the guayabera, the traditional Cuban dress. It's also very popular in Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. So it's a type of Caribbean dress, you could call it, but it's, you know, very Cuban. Don't get me wrong, they have a beautiful selection, but those prices are not really it. I'm just not gonna pay $135 for a guayabera. I'm finding guayaberas all day long for like $30. So for like $30, literally I'm finding guayaberas at like a Bell's outlet. The problem is they never have the right size. Now she's got the right size and she's got a very good selection. The problem is just she's got the selection, right? The selection's there. No puedo, hermano, gracias. No puedo, hermano, gracias. He's like literally trying to force you in there. I'm like, no, dude, no tingle in there, amigo. It's just the amount of culture in this neighborhood is just everywhere you look is packed with culture. It's like everywhere you look, the amount of culture infused into every inch of this place. It's like you just gotta walk around. Also, you can smell the bad stuff, the F. You know, you smell the herbal essence everywhere in Miami. Every once in a while, you can smell the F too, which is bad. That's kind of the type of thing you'd expect in Branson, not in Little Havana. So, no, there's definitely been some negative changes in this area. But I would guess too that part of the vibe of this neighborhood really is the bad environment as well. So here, it looks like a homeless person's got their toilet paper and stuff like that back here. So, you know what, I'm gonna guess, you know, part of the allure like of the tourists to come here would also be that it is still an authentic neighborhood. I mean, part of the shadiness of it all is that it's Miami. For the most part, Miami's Hispanic communities didn't have a homeless problem. And Miami has a lot of attributes that have made it attractive. That's why it's grown. And it's not just the weather, it's not just the beaches. Miami's overdose rate, for example, is the lowest in Florida of any of the large cities. Miami's homicide rate, while it isn't perfect, it's not as good as New York City, but it is at least in the bare minimum, right? Just in the least little bit. At least it's a little better than most U.S. cities, if not significantly. And I say significantly because, let's say, Cincinnati, 3 times higher than Miami. Louisville, 3 times higher than Miami. Atlanta, 2 times higher than Miami. Los Angeles, slightly higher than Miami. Just maybe 20 or 30% more. The fact that you can smell these substances in the air, it's like, what the crap? Notice these benches, right? They've had to put these metal things to keep homeless people from sleeping on these but the real question is, now Miami's Hispanic neighborhoods contributed to Miami having a lower homicide rate, have contributed to Miami having a lower overdose rate, but that has made Miami a far better, safer city overall than a lot of large American cities. So Miami's Latin demographic has helped Miami analytically be a much better city than other large American cities. And it isn't just the weather and beaches. There's a lot of other things going on that have made Miami kind of attractive and somewhat better. Affordable on these people. Try to, at least. By the way, the amount of Asian tourists. It's a place people come to Miami. They think about that. It's an awesome area. There's no doubt about it. The demographic that made Miami the great place it is gave it its Latin infusion, gave it all the good demographic analytics to make it a place that's desirable and growing and safe. Today is suffering more than ever, and it's starting to analytically look like other populations. Mostly the crunch of housing costs and the fact that Florida has not provided good industry, especially for people of Hispanic backgrounds. Now, in Miami, don't get it confused, a Hispanic that has no high school still makes more money than an African American with high school. So Hispanics do have some type of economical dominance, you could say, in the area. That's undoubtable. It still isn't easy to live in Florida. The cost of living, it's loud. So that same demographic that made Miami what it is today actually suffering. You're starting to see more Hispanics enter homelessness, and in fact, a lot of the homeless people that are here today are actually homeless people of a Latin demographic, which is almost unheard of, and it was unheard of until recently. Homelessness is starting to increase among the Latin population because of the cost of living. It really has got to the point where it is now really cost of living that it has really made life difficult for the people of Miami. So now you're seeing Hispanics, which usually have never been seen in homelessness to these levels. Hispanic, it's starting to have this problem. There's a lot more Hispanics now who are having this problem. The problem literally being that now Hispanics are actually seeing homelessness, something that had never existed before. And a lot of the homeless people that are here are actually from a Hispanic background. So maybe you can't blame it on other neighborhoods dumping their homeless here, or the city of Miami outright disrespecting its neighborhood by allowing the problem to fester here while it wouldn't fester in other neighborhoods that are a lot nicer. Now, it is already like Thanksgiving, and it was kind of cool in the morning, but already it is hot. Miami is the southern tip of Florida. It's hot here. Even this time of year when the rest of the country is seeing snow, it's literally, it's warm here. Facts. Now, Miami is still far safer than so many large American cities, and that continues to attract people to Miami as well. In particular, the southwest side of Miami is one of the safest parts of Miami on this day. But this little neighborhood, Little Havana, not exactly the safest neighborhood, but safe enough to where you can have a good time and not have to worry about your safety. In other words, yeah, it's a little shady. Is it the end of the world? No, it's not. It's not as bad as other large cities. People are still on. Yeah, buddy. Ah, sí, soy en Cuba, México, así. You good? So literally, you know, the stars, Gloria Estefan, Emilio Estefan. I'll tell you guys something that I hate to see when other bloggers do this. So every blogger that comes to Miami from New York or whatever, you know, they come here and they do their blogs in Miami, and they think that having a Cuban in their mouth is kind of like the staple of Cuban culture. I'm Cuban, never done it. I gotta say, the amount of Asian tourists here is impressive. I'm not sure what nationality they are, but there's a lot of Asians here. There is literally no city like Miami.
Vete allá a la zona hotelera y ya, pero compramos comida ahí.
The last time I came to Little Havana, I ran into a guy. He said he was from Kentucky, from Lexington. There was a white dude that was homeless out here, and he wanted to sneak around with me and hang out with me. And I know that's definitely like total tourist trap scamming. You know what? I let him play that scam on me because I wanted to see what it was about. I mean, honestly, part of learning is kind of getting burned every once in a while to know how things work. And I kind of ran with this guy, and you know, he was definitely up to some shady crap. But I ran with the guy. I let him talk to me, hang out with me. I wanted to see what his scam and his gimmick was, and I kind of figured it out. Sometimes in life, you just gotta learn. Like I said, one of the things that I love about this district is how it isn't just Cubans out here. There's Asians, there's Dominicans, there's Nicaraguans, there's Venezuelans. Like, this is just a mix of a lot of people, a lot of Central Americans, a lot of Asians. And Olga is back in Agustin Lara. I see if I can recognize these Pedro Vargas. It's a lot. It's one of those just where, like, okay, for now, music playing loud. All right, guys, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, there's nothing like Miami. There really isn't. You know, but there's a mix of different cultures and people here, and I think that even the tourists, I feel like sometimes even the tourists add to the allure of the place, because the tourists can sometimes shape the place. Take Panama City Beach. Panama City Beach over there, you know, the Florida Panhandle, right? The tourists are what define what that place is. And, you know, as much as somebody who's from here may not want to accept that, but the tourists actually do play a huge role in shaping what the place is going to be. Many times tourists actually play a huge role. Perfect example, Panama City Beach. So these are Cuban cafeteras. You can see they have from the little ones all the way to the big ones. Cuban coffee is definitely part of Cuban culture in a more appropriate, I'm not going to call it a stereotype, at least cultural association to the Cuban people. Coffee, more accordingly. Do you think these idiots that make these blogs from New York City know that? Probably not. Why? Because they're going off of just generic stereotypes. That's a cool little house right there with the coconut trees. The coconuts. Good little hustle, not gonna lie. Vibe out here is chill. And I do feel like the tourists and people who visit this place that are not from here add to the essence of the place in a huge way and contribute to the vibe. I mean, they are the vibe, actually, if you get that part. Because if you just got rid of the tourists and it's just left to locals, after a while, you wouldn't really have this neighborhood. It's a little bit of everything. So Domino's Park, as you guys know, playing dominoes is a huge thing in Cuban culture. And this is more of a, check this out, Domino Park. Sorry. Parks and Cricket. So Maximo Gomez Park, right here. So as you guys know, playing dominoes is kind of a huge thing with Cuban culture. And in here, a lot of old Cuban guys come here and play dominoes and all that. And that is, you know, another cultural aspect. Of course, here it's kind of on a more, I don't know, at what point does it become touristy if it's authentic and on display? It's kind of an interesting aspect. But I feel like too, the tourists probably come here and see the Cuban culture, Cuban cuisine, vibes, and understand that homelessness and some of the other problems that are visible here are also more endemic of the United States versus of the community. Bro, tú me ves cara medio turista, serio. Jugando, mi hermano, güey. Tenga buen día, bello día, mi hermano. But, I'm like, do I look like a tourist to you? He's like, yep. I was like, yep, I probably do. With this camera, I probably do, man. Thalia, Mexican singer, very famous. Gotta say, I never expected, every once in a while you can even smell fence. It's really crazy that every once in a while you can actually smell fence. I have to admit it, it's kind of, what is Chirino? Oh crap. What is Chirino right here? Panamanian. There are some pretty awesome Latin American little touches of culture. So this building here is interesting. Now this is La Esquina de la Fama, or the Corner of Fame, and it has a mural here that depicts, it depicts really a lot of not just Cuban but Latin American heroes and American heroes in general. You got George Washington, the father of the American independence. You got Abraham Lincoln, you know, the liberator of African Americans. You have Benny Moré, who's from Camagüey, Cuba, where I'm from. Celia Cruz, Cuban singer, who is now, Celia Cruz is now on a U.S. quarter. That's out in circulation. I haven't seen it yet, but it's out. Tito Puente, El Rey. You have, sorry if I don't recognize all these people, don't get mad at me. But basically, you got heroes Pedro Infante, Selena, so Rocío Dúrcal. So if you like Mexican music, if you like good music in general, these are some beautiful Mexican artists. Rocío Dúrcal, incredible voice. Selena, you've heard. Pedro Infante, these are voices of Mexico. José Martí, Cuban liberator. Nicaragüense, I'm sorry. Isla de Granada, Nicaragua, so some Nicaraguan stuff here. Yeah, Cantinflas, iconic Mexican actor, comedian, you could say. The Corner of Fame, it really is awesome to see people from other parts of the world. It's almost emotional to me, to see people from other parts of the world coming here to appreciate our Latin American culture and to see it. And that's why I kind of got a little offended when I drove in. I saw how bad the homelessness has got here, because, you know, this is kind of the embassy of Cuban culture. Considering that the country of Cuba is not a place a lot of people aren't even willing to visit. Now this place, might be a good place to get something to eat. Kid and I have to get something to eat. And Esquina de la Fama, I've actually had their Cuban sandwiches, and I'm not gonna lie, not the best. I'll be the first to say that many of the things that people consider authentically Cuban are nothing more than inaccurate stereotypes. And many of the restaurants that many people consider to be good representations of Cuban food, to me, ain't crap. And I'll be the first to say it, like it or not, me importa muy poco. Of course, you're gonna have a Mr. 305 mural for Pitbull. Now, there used to be a mural here that had a few other African American people and artists, but I think it's not here anymore. I think they changed it. Flan. Look at all these flans. Look at all these Cuban pastries. And I can tell you that if you want some authentic Cuban pastries, I can tell just by looking at this place. Let me catch the name of it real quick. Didn't catch the name of it, but whatever this is, I can tell you this is definitely a Cuban bakery you want to check out. Just by looking at the food, I can tell you it is authentic. That's the biggest pigeon I ever seen, I tell you what. Ain't that the biggest pigeon you ever seen? That's a big pigeon right there, man. You want me to cook it for you? I'll make a traditional dish for you right now. Fresh. You've never had nothing fresh on this, man. Very fresh meat, man. Celia Cruz, the most loved and admired of all Cuban artists of all time, without a doubt, Afro-Cuban. It's another example of how much African influence there is in Cuban culture. This is really a neat little store here. And there's sites like this that have a little bit more of a significance, you could call it politically, to the situation going on here. The Flame, the Bay of Pigs Invasion Memorial. We're not going to get into politics in today's video. I've had enough of politics. I gotta admit, I really like what they've done here. Cuba is a country infused with African heritage, culturally, musically, in every aspect, especially in religion. There's even people in Cuba that speak African languages because they've held on to their African traditions. Congo, a few other nationalities as well, where their religion, their language is still present in Cuba. And when you talk about religion, when you talk about language, that doesn't just include Afro-Cubans. There's white Cubans who also practice those religions, practice those faiths, practice those customs, cultures, including, almost broke my leg, the culture. The culture, music, religion, all that. A lot of white Cubans have those African influences. Not me in particular, but it is a lot of white Cubans practice Afro-Cuban religion, So it's kind of like an infusion, large infusion of Latin culture. Look at Cuba. A lot of countries are kind of a mix between, like in the United States, you have the Spaniards, or Mexico, the Spaniards meet the Native Americans in the case of Mexico. In the case of Mexico, it's Native American meets, like you say, Native American meets Spaniard. But in the case of Cuba, it's Spaniard meets African to a larger degree. The guitar on one end, the bongos from Africa. The guitar from Spain, the bongos from Africa. The essence of Cuban music itself is the infusion, or the union, you could say, of African with Spanish roots, combining them. But today, the situation in Cuba has got so bad that even Afro-Cubans, have decided to start coming. Yeah, what's going on here? Look how much garbage there is on this alleyway. I would guess that homeless people must live through here by the hundreds. So take a look at this alleyway right here. This is definitely toilet paper everywhere. Obviously, the businesses aren't going to let the homeless people go in. It's actually even hard to get a bathroom in here. But if you come back here, I wonder if there's needles back here. Let's see if we can find some needles. Obviously, what I'm doing is absolutely dangerous because there's homeless people that live here see me doing this. They're not going to be too happy. But again, let's see if there's needles back here. I don't see too many needles. Lots of cigarettes, lots of beer cans, toothpicks, toilet paper, and all the human waste you can imagine. Not that much for the sake of needles, though. So that's another kind of distinctive feature. But should something like this really exist? Should this really be Little Havana? Should this kind of be Little Havana? But what's crazy? If this was in other American cities, there would be needles everywhere. And I don't see pill bottles or needles here. I see some beer cans. No needles. No needle caps. Needless to say, all it takes is just walking a few blocks in any direction for the dynamic to change rapidly from touristy to not so touristy, you could say. It's kind of hilarious how I'm tripping on the people that are, the people that are doing all the hustlers. How I'm tripping on them thinking I'm a tourist. I kind of look white. I'm Cuban, but I'm green eyes. I was actually born blonde hair. I was a blonde-haired kid when I was born. Not anymore. As I got older, it turned more brown. But when I was little, I was blonde haired. I still think it's an absolute disgrace that you see toilet paper flying down the roads. You know, there should be public bathrooms, and there aren't, because then the homeless people use them, and the businesses in the city are trying to scare away the homeless people. So they want to discourage homelessness, but in that, now you have toilet paper. I think in the United States of America, you know, would you guys agree with me that there's no excuse why there should be toilet paper and related toilet paper paraphernalia, you could call it. In the United States of America, should there be toilet paper paraphernalia on the sidewalks and streets? Probably not. I think it's dysfunctional, if not outright embarrassing, that in the United States you have this situation. Some things are just embarrassing. Looks like actually moving this way is where more of the homeless people are. Down that way, it's all the restaurants and stuff that are nicer. But you know, if you start heading in any other direction, it deteriorates quickly. And you can see here, as soon as you come kind of this way, it just starts to deteriorate. I don't think Little Havana needs to have this problem on this scale. You can see somebody's literally living here. I mean, if one positive thing can be said is that there isn't visible paraphernalia. Yeah, Superman! So, like I said, all you have to do is just go a few blocks in any direction and the atmosphere changes greatly. Now, in Tampa, the Cuban shops are actually a lot more than here. There's a huge collection of those in Tampa. But what is interesting is, well, you gotta keep in mind that when you think about Tampa, Tampa is catering to more of an, you could say, an American audience of sales. In Cuba, for example, I don't ever recall. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, tourists go to Havana and Pinar del Rio, you know, western tip of Cuba and Havana, and there it's more prevalent. But I'm from eastern Cuba, and I'll be honest, it's just, in Camagüey, like the part of Cuba I'm from, it really isn't part of our culture. It is, you know, for Havana and Pinar del Rio, the western tip of the island. But is it for the whole island? Probably not. Probably not.
Have to eat it with a knife and fork.
No.
Oh, you have to film it online.